Hello guys, HL here, coming to you with another World of Warships Blitz video. In the last video, we took a look at some tips and tricks on how to improve your battleship games. As the response to the previous video was positive, I decided to follow up the previous video with today's video, which will be tips and tricks on how to improve your cruiser games. Before we hop into the video, don't forget to join my fleet to have a chance to be featured in my oncoming videos and to have a chance to play together. With that out of the way, let's hop into tip number 1. Starting off with tip number 1 is to support your teammates. So let's first look at what exactly is a cruiser. A cruiser is a ship that is a jack of all trades. They generally have good guns, good maneuverability and good speed, as well as torps in some cases of like Japanese cruisers and German cruisers. Some cruisers, I'm not talking about these cruisers in this video as these are special, cruisers like the German Siegfried, the USN Alaska and the USN, let's say, Buffalo. These are super heavy cruisers if I'm not mistaken, which are more like battleships. In this video, we will just be looking at mostly Tech 3 cruisers with guns ranging from 2 to 300mm and light cruisers with guns ranging from I think 127 to 152mm. So, cruisers. Cruisers should generally sail with friendly ships, like for example, a light cruiser generally works well sailing with a BB or battleship, because battleships often get rushed by destroyers. If a light cruiser such as Worcester sails together with a Yamato and a Shimakaze tries to rush, light cruisers can use their fast firing small caliber guns to destroy the destroyer, as they can fire quickly and the destroyer will find it hard to dodge. Heavy cruisers can also sail with friendly destroyers, as heavy cruisers can easily rival light cruisers. With the heavy cruiser escorting a friendly destroyer, the enemy light cruiser will find it difficult to attack the destroyer, as they will easily be killed. Examples of heavy cruisers include Des Moines and Moskva. Examples of light cruisers are ships like Worcester and Seattle. As such, players should often support enemy ships. And before I forget to add this, cruisers can also provide AA fire support. Cruisers from the American line have the AA defense consumable, which will increase their AA power for a short period of time. This will allow them to ward off enemy planes, or at least discourage planes from coming in the general direction. As such, cruiser players should be very aware of what is going on in the battle and try to support their teammates in every way possible. And tip number 2 is to angle and constantly move. Firstly, angling, as with all ships, is really important, but with cruisers it's even more important than battleships. This is because angling makes you a smaller target to hit, as well as you might have a chance of deflecting shells if you're angled at the right angle. Cruisers should also constantly be moving, as their armor is not as good as battleships, and if they get hit by a battleship salvo, it will hurt really bad. Like say, if a Takao from the Japanese Navy is not aware that a Bismarck is sneaking up behind her and she's going to shoot her full broadside, she will eat like probably 1 or 2 citadels if shot by Bismarck, which will deal a lot of damage. Constantly moving also applies to changing course and avoiding torpedoes, as cruisers don't have that much health, even though they might have decent torpedo protection from cruisers from some nations. Their low health pool, or at least decent health pool, makes it a better choice to just dodge the torps instead of hitting them. An extra tip is cruisers with high shell arcs, such as the USS Atlanta, can also sit behind an island. When they sit behind an island, they can fire over the island as their shell arcs are really high and pepper an enemy battleship or cruiser with HE shells and start fires. While doing this, they are generally quite safe, as the enemy battleship might not be able to spot them, or even if the enemy ship can spot them, they might not be able to shoot the Atlanta that is docked just behind the island. So guys, remember to constantly move around and to angle to avoid being blapped by battleships and losing a lot of hit points, as dying early in the game definitely will not help the team. Coming in at tip number 3, we have planning ahead. While this tip applies to every ship in the game, it is applied to every ship differently. In cruisers, as we discussed in tip number 1, cruisers are very versatile ships and they are pretty much jack of all trades. Cruisers generally work best as supports when they sail with friendly ships. Cruisers also have to be careful of how not to overextend even though they are fast, because while their speed is certainly one of their assets, overextending into enemy territory will result in all the enemy battleships being like, wow, that cruiser's here, let's kill her first. And with that, you will pretty much get killed by a few salvos as your armor is not that great. So cruisers should be careful, move with enemy battleships, and support your teammates. Light cruisers with fast firing and small caliber guns like Chapayev, Cleveland, and Seattle generally can use techniques like hit and run, HE spam. This is what I like to call it at least. So basically, what they do is they load HE, flank enemy battleships or a line that they are pushing, or at least somewhere where enemy battleships are not aiming their guns at, pepper them with HE and run away. This technique works well when supporting a friendly teammate's push, because like if your battleships are pushing their battleships, let's say in a straight line, and you go down to the side and support, it will distract them and they will not just push your friendly battleships head on, because if they don't bother about you, you could start a lot of fires, which would deal a lot of damage, as fires hurt on battleships as they can burn for, if I'm not mistaken, 1 minute. So cruisers can often use harassing as a technique to help support friendly ships. In conclusion, planning ahead will maximize your survivability and your damage output, which will result in more wins and possibly make you more popular among your teammates, as they are more likely to add you and play together. And tip number 4 is choosing the right shell type. Generally, heavy cruisers with big guns like Siegfried should choose things like HE if they're shooting at destroyers, as their AP will usually overpen and not deal the maximum damage. For heavy cruisers or super heavy cruisers, firing at battleships, AP normally works, but in some situations, if the battleship is heavily angled or the armor is just too tough for your guns to penetrate, like a Des Moines versus across the Kurfürst, HE normally works better, as even if the HE doesn't penetrate, it has a chance of starting fires, which can also deal damage over time. Light cruisers, on the other hand, cruisers with small caliber guns that fire fast, are generally light cruisers like Worcester, will generally choose AP for shooting at destroyers, as their small AP will just get penetrations on destroyers and less often achieve over penetrations. Light cruisers generally, if they're firing at battleships, should also use they should use AP shells, as they can fire fast, and their HE, if fired in big amounts, is most likely to start fires. This is one of the best ways to damage battleships. So well, I haven't talked about how cruisers should deal with other cruisers. Well, this is very situation dependent, as it depends on what caliber your guns are and what thickness the enemy armor is and how they are angled. So in a situation where a cruiser with big guns, let's say Azuma, the Japanese cruiser, is fighting a cruiser with thin armor such as the American Seattle, Azuma will strongly benefit from firing armor penetrating shells, as the light armor on Seattle will easily be penetrated. On the other hand, if Seattle is the one firing at Azuma, I think I'll use Siegfried, Seattle versus Siegfried. Siegfried has German turtleback armor, which is really tough to penetrate, especially if you have small caliber shells. In that case, Seattle will strongly benefit from firing HE, as HE, even if, well, as mentioned, it doesn't penetrate, it has a chance of starting fires and dealing damage. But overall, light cruisers should not pick fights with heavy cruisers, well, because heavy cruisers will easily kill them. So yeah, always remember to choose the right shell type, as this will maximize your damage output. And tip number 5 is to use your consumables at the right time. As you guys probably have already noticed, most, if not all, cruisers come with consumables, ranging from consumables like radar, sonar, and AA defense alert on the Worcester, to rapid reload and speed booster on cruisers like the Henry IV, the French cruiser line. Generally, consumables are like boosters. They allow you to have a short burst of a special perk to maximize your damage or your team support. And guys, if you want me to specially talk about consumables, please leave a comment stating you want that video in the comment section down below. If so, I will make a video in the future. Well, back to this example. As you guys can already see from the gameplay, I have both a speed booster and a rapid reload. Generally, a speed booster is good in situations where you need to run away, as its name suggests what it does, it increases your speed for a short period of time. So, if you are being chased or you need to get away from a bad situation, generally it works very well. The rapid reload shortens your reload time, which is good if you are trying to rain lots of shells because they are showing flat broadside or are just in the right place for you to shoot them. So guys, using your consumables correctly will maximize your damage output as well as maximize your team support. Last but not least, at tip number 6 is to understand your torpedoes. I like to split the cruisers in this game into 3 categories. The first category being cruisers without torpedoes, which are mostly from the American Tech 3 line. The second category are cruisers with torpedoes, but only a few of them, with the French cruisers having only 6 torpedoes with 3 on each side. The third category, a few guys probably guessed it, we are categories with cruisers with lots of torpedoes, like the Japanese Zao with 20 torps, 10 on each side, which is a lot of torps. It's pretty much like a destroyer, but not really a destroyer because, well, cruisers, their torps, while they might have lots of them, they do not have the speed, range and damage of destroyers. Cruisers also should not sail as close to enemy battleships as destroyers to throw their torpedoes, as their concealment isn't that great, so they will easily be slapped by lots of shells and die very quickly. Generally, cruiser torpedoes are better used for situations like preventing enemy YOLOs, so say if you are in a Zao and the enemy Grosserkurfus decides to suddenly rush you with her brawling power to kill you and blow you out of the water, just drop the torps, it will generally take her out. So guys, torps are generally good for taking out ships that will rush you, or you can also use them in situations like you're hiding behind an island and you know a battleship is coming and it doesn't know you're there. In such a situation, just drop the torps as the ship comes around the island. Alternatively, the torps can also be used for area denial, which works well in capture the flag, or rather not capture the flag but domination, because throwing torpedoes in the general direction of the enemy will sometimes make it tougher for the enemy to rush in, as they don't want to eat your torpedoes. So guys, those are 6 tips and tricks on how you can improve your cruiser gameplay. I usually like to put a gameplay example which I explain how I use my tips, so you guys can see how it is applied into a real game instead of just having lots of theory. So here I'm going to be narrating over this game. As you can see, we're playing in Algeria, playing on, if I'm not mistaken, it's Aurora base capture mode. So I am aware that the enemy has an Ise, the Japanese tier 7 battleship carrier, as she has planes. Her planes sometimes can give her a good advantage, not in terms of damage but in terms of spotting power. As you can see, her planes are coming. If they fly right over me, they will spot me straight away. So I am slowing down because I don't want them to spot me. Luckily the planes are heading to the other side, so yeah, I'm pretty much safe from being spotted here. So I'm detected because the planes are quite close, and I'm being very careful so I don't overextend and be the one that's like sticking out of your team, because if you're sticking out of your team, the enemy will basically target you. So I'm being really careful here, just ensuring I don't get spotted. And I'm not spotted again, which is good, as now the enemy Nuremberg appears. She doesn't expect there to be 2 cruisers shooting at her, so I activate rapid reload and use AP shells to fire at her armor. German armor is usually tough from the sides, but not tough on the deck, so plunging fire usually deals lots of damage. But the Nuremberg is good at playing. This is a skilled player, by the way, he's turning away and making it hard for me to torp him. He drops torpedoes, but they just run out of range. Meanwhile, an enemy Fubuki appears right beside our base, so I decide at this point that I'm going to be turning around the base to defend the base, because I don't want all of our team to move forward and no one defending the base and our team loses our base, which means we basically lose the whole game no matter what we're doing. So I'd rather protect our base. The Fubuki just went undetected again, which is kind of a pain because her concealment range is pretty good as she's a destroyer, so she can see me in many situations like now, but I can't see her. This is also bad because she can torp me without me knowing where the torps are coming from. So I'm circling, avoiding the shells which I guess are coming from Issei, as Issei is a battleship, her shells hit really hard. So I just thought that the Fubuki probably went away, so I activated speed booster as I wanted to move forward to help my team shoot at the enemy. As again, cruisers should support your team. Don't be that guy that sits in the back of the base, or not base, but map, and does nothing. So, Nürnberg has appeared again. I'm firing at her, using AP, because AP definitely hits Nürnberg harder. So the Nürnberg is showing full broadside. I use rapid reload again to increase the number of shells I can pepper in a short time. I guess those are Fubuki torps, but torps run out of range, which is good for me. I choose to use the wide setting instead of the narrow setting for torpedoes, as wide settings can be harder to dodge and easier to dodge depending on how you see it. Most players generally don't expect a wide setting, as most people use the narrow setting, so the wide setting clips the Nürnberg on the bow, dealing some damage, and I take down the Nürnberg. Meanwhile, the Fubuki has just appeared behind and is using torpedoes to try to hit me, so I'm dodging around to prevent being hit. Another tip which I like to use is to use the torpedo firing mechanism to find the range, because it allows you to see whether the enemy is moving forwards or backwards. So the Fubuki's just appeared, she's torping, and I decide to use the speed booster so I can run away from the torps. I can't outrun them, so I try to turn around them, which I managed to do. In this situation, I was firing AP at the Fubuki because armor penetrating shells from the Algeri could do lots of damage, but ideally, if you're firing at destroyers with AP, it is best if your gun caliber is small, like the Brooklyn with a 152mm gun. With big guns like this, HE often works better, though I'm firing AP in this situation because, as you can see the damage that is being displayed on the enemy ship, I'm getting a lot of overpens, but I also get penetrations here and there, and as you can see, I'm lucky the tops just missed, because if they hit, I would most likely have died. This was a really bad play on my part, I shouldn't have done that. So the Fubuki is down to a sliver of health. I'm basically circling around, waiting for my shells to reload, so Fubuki does not get sniped and become my teammate's kill. I fire on the Fubuki, and I take down the Fubuki with 2 kills to this match. So at this point, the enemy only has 3 ships left, and they basically retreated to the corners of the map. I'm not going to show you guys the whole gameplay because there's basically nothing that happens, nobody dies. So yeah, that's basically how we won the game. I achieved a battle star by having 37k damage, but I hope you guys get the idea of how the tips and tricks that I just shared can be applied into our games to improve our chances at winning. So guys, those are 6 tips and tricks on how to improve your cruiser gameplay. If you guys enjoyed my video, please don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you don't want to miss any of my future videos. If you guys want me to talk about anything in particular, please leave a comment down in the comment section down below. By the way guys, we are aiming for 50 subscribers. Once we reach 50 subs, I will answer a question from you guys in every video. It can be any question. It can be a question about World of Warships, or it can be a personal question. As long as it is a relevant question, I will answer it. And guys, that's all for now. My name is HL, and I'll see you guys next time.